Dr. Michael.
Midterms are just
the
You're listening to the official Reformed Stoic podcast, covering politics, philosophy, theology, conspiracy theories. I'm ready to get to the bottom of this life. Are you? Join Wolfgang, Sketty Squad, Purity Gang, as we strive to take dominion over this dying planet. I am Reformed Stoic, and this is my podcast. wasn't paying attention. I missed my cue. Let's go. Let's go it. Looks like some people in chat are working out. That's what I like to hear. The weather's been very trolly over here today. I was gonna go for a run after I finished drumming, but it was raining, and now it's beautiful and not raining. But I did my calisthenics circuit, 6 minutes straight punching, and I went and did some neck crunches off my bed. I'm gonna get the neck hard. I'm gonna get a hard man neck. All right, guys. Well, once again, I was kind of scrambling for topics, but we watched that special on Christian nationalism this morning, and I figured we'd go ahead and do that topic today, and I think I found some good resources for that. We'll go ahead and see what the world is saying about Joe Biden right now as far as approval ratings. We got some really mixed messages there. And then a little bit about politics and church. How are Christians supposed to respond to politics? Starting a fresh week, guys, and I feel like I've had a decently productive day today, and I'm going to try to keep it up. Going to try to keep the ball rolling, and guess what, my friends? This is the last podcast that will be on this channel. We're going back to the main. It's been a long time in the making. I should probably upload like a video tonight on the main channel. Tomorrow, I'll upload a couple of videos before we get back. I'm excited. Getting back on our seat of power before Smeartober. It's going to be a good month, guys. We've earned it. We grinded in Smeartember, and now we're going to thrive it in Smeartober. Let's news segment it. You're listening to the Reformed Stoic News segment. Let's go. I stay glugging. You know how it be. What y'all know about that? What y'all know about that, man? I know all about that. All right, let's get the proper mic placement. What is this? Amateur hours? Okay. Let's get it going. First up, we got, let's see here. Did I do this right? Yeah, these are a couple of longer segments. 10 minutes, 13 minutes. So we got two news segments here. We got CNN, Baptist leader speaks out. Christian nationalism is not Christianity. Let's take a look what they're saying here. CNN hype.
Because we are Americans, and Americans kneel to God and God alone.
Real.
Hey all, I'm John Avlon, and this is Reality Check on the Extremist Beat. We've got to talk about Christian nationalism, because it's gone from a fringe belief system advocated by a few folks on the far right to an increasingly prominent article of political faith inside the Republican Party. In recent months, it's been celebrated by some of the Trumpiest members of Congress.
We need to be the party of nationalism, and I'm a Christian and I say it proudly. We should be Christian nationalists.
The church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. That is not how our founding fathers intended it. And I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk.
And that's not all. Christian nationalism also reared its head in the January 6th attack on Congress.
Thank you, divine, omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent Creator God, for filling this chamber with your white light of love.
Now, you might ask yourself, just how different is this really from mainstream Christianity? And how much of a departure is it from politics as usual in a democratic republic? The answer is a lot. So let's clarify our terms here, right? A recent study by the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty listed 5 core narrative beliefs of Christian nationalists. 1. America is a divinely appointed nation by God that is Christian. 2. America's founders were in fact establishing a nation based on Christian principles with white men as the leaders. 3. Others would be Native Americans, enslaved Africans, and immigrants would accept and cede to this narrative of America as a Christian nation and accept their leadership. 4. America has a special place, not only in world history, but in biblical scripture.
Well, I would start by saying, because these questions are setting up an attack. No, the Founding Fathers did not say that this should be a Christian nation. But I would retort with, it's not all about what the Founding Fathers were about. I'm pretty sure there's all kinds of liberals today who are like, the Founding Fathers were racist, or, they don't care about what the Founding Fathers said either. It's just not really all about what the Founding Fathers wanted, man. A lot of them were revolutionary-minded, Enlightenment, Freemason-type thinkers. Yeah, these points that are being posited right now are very frustrating. It's definitely setting up for an attack. This isn't going to be good. Like, appealing to the Founding Fathers, like, oh, the Founding Fathers said that, so it must be true, or it's like, oh, everything hangs off of what the Founding Fathers said. You're going to lose that debate because the foundations of this country are Freemason Enlightenment liberal values.
Especially concerning the return of Christ. 5. There is no separation between church and state. Now, in case that sounds like an exaggeration for effect, I want you to watch this clip of an arena full of evangelicals in Atlanta reciting the so-called Watchman Decree.
Whereas we, the church, are God's governing body on the earth, whereas we have been given legal power from heaven and now exercise our authority, whereas we are God's ambassadors and spokespeople over the earth.
Hello? Base Department.
Whereas through the power of God, we are the world influencers. Whereas because of our covenant with God, we are equipped and delegated by Him to destroy every attempted advance of the enemy.
Yes, Christian nationalism is crying out for a reality check, in part because of its crushing certainty. Look, God knows, good people can disagree about religion. But as Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan said, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but not their own facts. And there is precious little evidence that the founders intended to establish an explicitly Christian nation. For example, the Constitution does not mention God, the Bible, or the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, see, it's all about the Founding Fathers now. The Founding Fathers said this. The Founding Fathers said that. Like were the Founding Fathers like the infallible arbiters of objective truth? Like fucking everybody in the Founding Fathers.
Now, yes, most founders were Christian, and many hoped that religious faith writ large.
Hey, CNN, what happened to this country was stolen from the natives? I mean, the Founding Fathers stole this country from the natives, right? So now it's about what the Founding Fathers say. Like at one side of the liberals' mouth, it's all like, oh, this country was stolen. This is never a white country. This country never belonged to the colonizers, evil colonizers. And now you're going to lecture me about like what the Founding Fathers said. Like that's the end all be all. It's fucking cringe, dude.
Would help maintain an honest, civil, self-governing society. But George Washington...
I agree with the Democrats that the Founding Fathers stole this country from the natives. Therefore, it doesn't really matter what the Founding Fathers said. Therefore, I say we should have a theocracy because I don't care about traitor Freemasons like this guy.
Notably declined to take communion as president. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were famously committed to religious liberty and the separation of church and
both Freemasons.
State. And even the 1797 Treaty of Tripoli, ratified by a Senate full of founders, declared,
"My ancestor." He was kind of a cuck, maybe.
The government of the United States.
Honestly, John Adams founded the anti-Freemason society or anti-Freemason league or whatever it was called.
States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. The United States has seen several waves of religious revivals that have helped shape our culture in profound ways. But we have also seen waves of immigration that increase the diversity of religious traditions practiced here in America. And evangelical Christianity is a relatively new phenomena that essentially stayed out of politics as an organized force until the 1970s and 1980s. All of which is to say that just as Americans can be deeply patriotic, but not narrowly nationalist, Americans can also be deeply religious without blurring their faith with partisan politics. Now, joining me to discuss this recent rise of Christian nationalism is Amanda Tyler, the Executive Director of the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty and the lead organizer of Christians Against Christian Nationalism. Amanda.
Oh, so the Baptist leader speaks out against Christian nationalism is not Christianity. And it's a woman. Okay, great. Wonderful. Imagine my shock.
Explain why, as a person of faith, you feel a need to warn your fellow Americans about Christian nationalism.
Actually, as a woman of faith, not a person, not a woman of faith.
Nationalism.
Well, thanks, John, for having me on and for covering this really vital topic. Christian nationalism is not Christianity. Christian nationalism is a political...
Is there any men there that can maybe speak on this? Like, actually, the Bible says that women aren't really supposed to speak on this kind of stuff. I don't really... the Bible says that women aren't really supposed to be speaking on this, so...
Political ideology and a cultural framework that tries to merge our identities as Americans and in Christians. And in the process, it threatens Americans' democracy. It distorts America's promise of religious...
Oh no, democracy. We have to stop being Christians when it comes to democracy. Democracy is above our faith, of course.
Freedom for all. And importantly to me and to thousands of other Christians, it distorts Christianity, sometimes beyond recognition. And that's because it takes Christianity's central message, which is a gospel of love, and turns it into a false idol.
The central message is that salvation is through faith in Jesus Christ. If you love everybody and you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're going to burn in hell. So I don't know if that's the central message, sweetie pants. Maybe you should get a man to speak on it.
Of power. It confuses our allegiances to God and replaces it with an ultimate allegiance to country. We've seen the rise of Christian nationalism.
But you're saying that democracy has to come first. See, that's an allegiance to the country. You're putting democratic values above Christian values.
At different periods in our history, including in the 1950s, around the Cold War, where we saw increasingly evidence of Christianity in government speech, such as "In God We Trust" or adding "Under God" to the Pledge of Allegiance. So this isn't the first time that we've had efforts to push privileging of Christianity over other faiths.
Wow, so this Baptist leader has a problem with us saying "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance. Wow, man, this is really infuriating for me to watch, bro.
In recent years, we saw former President Trump really exploit some of this Christian nationalism ideology for political gain, to galvanize groups of people together who believe in this ideology, who want Christianity privileged over other religions by the government, and use that to exploit for political gain.
Coming up, you'll hear why our guest says now is the crucial moment for Americans of all faiths to stand up and condemn the rise of Christian nationalism. That's next. I want to read you a quote from an essay our CNN colleague John Blake wrote. The incongruity of people carrying Jesus Saves signs while joining a mob whose members are pummeling police officers leads to an obvious question. How can white Christians...
Why do you want peace if you fight the police officers? You're fighting the police officers. They're taking a fucking stand, bro. Woo, boy. People are poking the Christian nest, you guys. I don't think this message is going to be well received. I don't think this message is going to be well received. This seems to be a new thing. It's time for everybody to take a stand against Christian nationalism. I don't think it's going to be well received. Why are the Christians being violent to the officers? Because you're enforcing your demonic Freemasonic Enlightenment values down our throats and down our children's throats. You're forcing our kids to get indoctrinated by people who are pushing trannies and transgender, gay. You're pushing all your liberal hoo-ha all over our kids, and we're getting tired of it. But if you want peace, then why have the SS? Then why have the SA? Precisely for the reason that you do not want me to have them.
Nationalists who claim to follow Jesus, the Prince of Peace, who renounced violence.
Oh, the Prince of Peace. Are you a Christian? Are you a Christian, man? You see, whenever atheists tell me anything about what the Bible's about, I just want to sock them in the fucking face, bro. The Prince of Peace. Is Jesus the Prince of Peace? I did not come to bring peace, but fighting between families, between mothers and fathers. He's not the Prince of Peace. And the central message of the gospel is not love. It's not centrally love and peace. That's some fucking perennialist liberal dog shit. Ugh, just look at her face, bro.
It's in the gospel.
I want you to be subjugated, sweetie. I want you to be subjugated. I want all of your power taken away. I don't want you to be any sort of a fucking authority in the church. You need to be defeated. You are my enemy. You are a traitor, and I hope that you guys are stripped of all your fucking power someday.
Gospels support a violent insurrection. What's your response to that?
Well, I think because they're not following Christ in that. They're following power. They have totally replaced their allegiance to God with an allegiance to political.
Yeah, an allegiance to God is just shut up, sit down, and watch your country go to shit. Shut up, sit down, and watch all the shaved head women shove trannies down your kid's throat. Shut up, sit down, and your 8-year-old daughter's got to go to the bathroom with some fucking woman man. I don't think so.
Power. And when we do that, then we lose our commitment to being peacemakers and we become violent. You know, I think it's really important.
It's not central to Christianity to be a peacemaker. That's not what Christ said.
When we talk about Christian nationalism, to distinguish it from patriotism. You know, we can be faithful Christians and patriotic Americans.
I want to play you a clip of Gab CEO
by bowing down to Freemasonic Enlightenment values and not doing a damn thing about the country going to shit.
Torba, who's been consulting for Pennsylvania GOP gubernatorial nominee Doug Mastriano, and get your reaction.
This is a Christian nation. Christians outnumber you by a lot. And we're not going to listen to 2%. You represent 2% of the country, okay? We're not.
Let's fucking go, dude. I like this kind of talk.
Not bending the knee to the 2% anymore. The 98% of the rest of us, 70, 75%.
Fucking go! Let's get it! I'm getting pumped up, dude.
Of which are Christians, self-identifying Christians. We're not taking it anymore, bud. We are taking back our culture. We're taking back our country. We're taking back our government. So, deal with it.
Our
fucking, oh my gosh, oh no, what are you gonna do, sweetie? What are you gonna do? What the hell are you gonna do, bro? Just stop acting like you're gonna do anything. Look at your pantsuit. Wow, you're so powerful in your pantsuit. You guys aren't gonna do shit. That guy just mogged you, dude. Get mogged.
founding framers would be spinning in their graves to hear.
Oh, wow, the founding framers. It's all about the founding framers, guys. You see how it always comes back to the founding framers? The founding framers would be spinning in their graves. I'm more worried about if Jesus Christ is spinning in heaven. I'm more worried about the saints. I'm more worried about the church. I don't really give a shit what the framers are doing in their graves.
This is exactly what they fought against at the time when they disestablished religion. And
that's their whole argument gone, dude. It's all the framers said this, the framers said that, the framers said this. Well, you know what? The framers would also be rolling in their graves if they saw this like weird transgender LGBT like atheist nightmare, to be honest with you. The freaking framers would be rolling in their graves. I'm sure the framers are rolling in their graves, and it's not just because of everything that you want this country to be, sweetie.
This is why I believe that Christian nationalism is the single biggest threat today to religious freedom for all. And those of us who are...
But when you're a Baptist leader and like your values are all about like, oh, how do I give Muslims more power? How do I give Jews more power? How do I give the Church of Satan more power? I don't feel like you should be a Baptist leader. Christian leaders should be like, how do we get power? Who cares? Who cares, dude? Muslims can go live in the Middle East. I'm sorry, bro. Like, the Constitution was about freedom of Christian denominations. Originally, it was a Protestant nation. It was like this small population of Freemasons who had a lot of power, and then Protestants, Puritans, and then ultimately with the First Amendment, freedom of religion, that's when the Catholics started showing up. It was about Christian religions. Nobody ever envisioned it being about Muslims and pagans, and it's a slippery slope, guys. It's a slippery slope. This country's up for grabs, and ultimately things are going to get pretty crazy over this next decade.
Christians who have enjoyed privilege in this country, who have benefited in some ways from the ideology of Christian nationalism, we have a special responsibility to show love for our neighbor and stand up for their religious freedom rights right now.
How do you see this all de-escalating and people of faith depolarizing and decoupling with the appeals of extremist politics?
Well, while I'm incredibly troubled by the increasingly extreme and violent rhetoric around Christian nationalism, I am heartened by the kind of response that I'm seeing in the community. Now that it is more out in the open, I see many more Americans and Christians standing up to Christian nationalism. So I think it will take a broad response from Americans from all different political and ideological points of view to stand up to this poisonous ideology of Christian nationalism.
I want to thank you so much for joining us here on Reality Check Extremist Beat. Be well. Keep on fighting.
It's always some fucking brown guy and a woman. It's always a brown guy and a woman, dude. It's never a white guy. We all saw what the white guy had to say. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be racist, but we all saw what the white guy had to say.
You represent 2% of the country, okay? We're not bending the knee.
I think there's a lot of white Christians with this sentiment. It's like, yeah, that's toxic masculinity. Oh, back to the brown guy and the woman, dude. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm not trying to be racist, but you guys, the easy going, like, let's make everybody happy. Let's all say the safe thing. It's just, we're getting there, and it's fascinating to see, you guys. It's really fascinating to see. Like, we're getting there. And our boomer parents and our boomer families are just trying, don't be so radical. Don't be so radical. Like, you guys thought that we live in this peaceful, enlightened society where it's okay. The wars are gone. We fought the wars so that we can live in peace. There's problems, boomers. There's big problems. We grew up in some weird Freemasonic test tube where, like, all the television had these shitty values. And I'm not sounding like super organized and well-spoken right now, but it's because it's infuriating and it's just time. Look at them smiling. Look at how they're we will stop the Christians. No, you won't. No, you won't. You know what? Shit. Hold on. We should read some of the comments. We should definitely read some of the comments. I am a Christian, and I do not even recognize this version of Christianity. Yeah, nobody cares, dude. Great story. Thank you for letting this Christian know she ain't alone and feeling horrified but what these people are doing. Cringe. I'm glad this interview was done. A great and informative segment on Christian nationalism. These are probably anonymizer comments, dude. As a Vietnamese Buddhist who believes in peace and forgiveness, I find this Christian nationalism fad really terrifying. Yeah, but nobody cares about Vietnamese Buddhism. As a Christian from Germany, I can just say, oh no, not again, please. This comment section is so cucked, dude. As deplorable as Green is, the fact her district chooses her to represent them is even more disturbing. The tides are rising, my friends. There's that part of you that's like, I know that if I say what I want to say, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be ostracized, I'm going to be isolated. Looks like you're going to have to spend your time alone, incel, because nobody likes your toxic behavior. You see, guys, people being isolated, people losing their friends, people being canceled, losing your friends on Facebook, speaking out, getting tarred and feathered, this is all leading toward something. Okay, if you're like me and you used to be a part of some happy-go-lucky group and then you started your life became about more, you were less interested in just getting drunk and partying and you wanted to read, you wanted to study, and you started to learn, wow, maybe this isn't the pinnacle of life. Maybe things used to be better. Maybe there's something, maybe we've thrown out the baby with the bathwater and maybe there's just more to the story than what I've been told in my public school. A lot of emotions here, guys. A lot of different views about where this country should go from here. And I'm kind of rocking with what that white Christian guy said about, Christians are still the majority and we're tired of getting pushed around. All right, these comments are useless, bro. Let's just keep going. Dr. Michael Brown breaks down healthy, unhealthy, and boogeyman Christian nationalism. Oh boy, gee, here we go. Here we go.
Brown, welcome back. We've got to dive right into this topic today. And before we do, I want to mention your new book. It's The Political Seduction of the Church, How Millions of American Christians Have Confused Politics with the Gospel. Now, the question I have for you, and we're going to talk about the book, but before we get there, and it's a hefty question, what is Christian nationalism?
So the answer to that is it depends on who you ask. Let's just say that there's a healthy Christian nationalism, there's an unhealthy Christian nationalism, and there's the boogeyman Christian nationalism that I don't find a contradiction between loving America and being a Christian. So that would be the healthy form. And the way many Americans looked at us in the hey, we're a Christian nation. Right, when President Obama a few years ago said we're no longer a Christian nation, there was an uproar over that. Depends on what's meant by it. Unhealthy Christian nationalism, and that's what I write against in the Political Seduction book, is the merging of American identity with Christian identity, is the idea that America is kind of like ancient Israel with a special covenant with God, and therefore we must be Christian, that it's a certain destiny. And that with that, you want to make Christianity the religion of the nation, basically, and then say that we have to lead the nation as Christians and then impose our values on the nation. It blurs certain lines and can become dangerous. The Christian nationalism that the left keeps talking about in the media is often highly exaggerated. It's as if all...
Let me tell you my idea of Christian nationalism. That Christians should be able to unapologetically be Christian, raise their kids Christian, put their kids in schools where nobody's making them feel guilty for being Christian. Nobody's constantly trying to remind them about the importance of catering to other people. My idea of Christian nationalism is there's a lot of Christians in this country, and they have every right to figure out how to live their way of life here uninterrupted, without being guilted, without their kids being taught things that go against their faith in school. That's what I think it's about. And this country is becoming this weird, like, Neapolitan ice cream where it's like, oh, it's got to be 25%, gay black people and 25% atheist Asians. This weird obsession with diversity. I mean, what's going to happen when your people and your culture and your faith starts to get pushed down. When your numbers start to get pushed down in a country, you're going to lose influence. You're going to lose power. You're going to lose your ability to have a comfortable way of life. You're going to become a minority in your own country. You're going to get dominated. It's a fucking invasion. It's a replacement. It's war. It's pushing people out of their own fucking countries. It's making you lose power in your own country. Christian nationalism is about saying, hey, you know what? We don't value Neapolitan ice cream. I don't need like one Asian character and one black character and one gay character and one Muslim character. I don't give a shit if everybody in my favorite TV show is white and Christian. If you got a problem with that, you can fucking move somewhere else. You can go live in a gay country where everybody's gay, and then everybody on your favorite TV show can be gay. Go to your own country, have your own fucking TV show, and everybody can be gay and black. But I want to live somewhere where my kids can say, I like this TV show, and everybody's white, and everybody's Christian, and nobody fucking bats an eye. That's what it's about.
All of us who pray for America, or all of us who are politically involved, or all of us who voted for Donald Trump are somehow part of a plot to take over the nation and impose a theocracy run by religious leaders on the country. That's the exaggerated form. But I am personally concerned that there is the blurring of politics with the gospel, that there's the wrapping the gospel in the American flag, that MAGA, Make America Great Again, also means let Christianity rule America again, because that's one and the same. So when
make no mistake about it, I'm not with MAGA. I'm not with Trump. That's some glow shit, dude. It's glows, because at the end of the day, guys, the left are brainwashed to be this like pseudo replacement for communism, because our CIA hates communism, rightfully so. I'm not saying I'm a commie, but they serve the capitalist beast, the fucking Rockefeller, JP Morgan, globalist capitalist beast. Okay, and that is inside of the Republican Party. So the whole two-party system is just a great big sham, you guys.
Things get blurred, the kingdom of God gets too mingled with the kingdom of the world. That's a concern.
Yeah, and I think that you broke that down in those three camps so well, and those are all very true. I think the question a lot of people have, and this is the struggle, right? On the first and the second group, where is that line between, and feel free to correct me on any of this, but loving the country, you're a Christian first, you love the country, you want to see America honor God by having policies that would do that, while also at the same time not impeding anybody else's right not to believe in those policies. It's a tough line, I think. So where does that line sort of end for that first group? And in specific terms, I think the Supreme Court, we're seeing a lot of claims about the Supreme Court being a Christian nationalist Supreme Court. So I thought I would throw that out there and just let you respond.
Right. So when it comes to the Supreme Court, each side looks at it differently. When the Supreme Court goes to the left, we say it's an activist court and it's left the Constitution. When it goes to the right, people say it's a theocratic court, the Christian national court. So we have our rhetoric on both sides. Remember that both Republicans and Democrats are saying that the next elections will decide whether America is going to be a democratic country. So each side is demonizing the other, although absolutely I prefer the Republicans.
And that is inherently a flawed system of politics. We're losing our democracy. We're losing our democracy. Well, what he just said is democracy. Sometimes the Democrats win, and then we have this weird, like, raging lefty government, and then sometimes the Republicans win, and then people think it's headed towards a theocracy. But in reality, the Republican Party would never let that happen. That's a shitty system of government. It's mob rule. It's a delusional, backwards ass way to run a country. And look what's happening to our country. It's going to shit. We have to protect our right to have a country where half of the country hates the other half. It's a stupid way to run a country. It's fucking stupid. Democracy sucks, and I don't give a shit about it. I don't give a shit about the framers, and I just think we should go to war, and I hope Christians win. That's pretty much what it's coming down to.
Republican policies to the Democratic policies. But in short, it comes to this. The moment we forget...
We will, Dazed. We're going back to the main channel on Wednesday. I got over 2K subs over there, and we're going to get that ball rolling. We're going to get that momentum rolling. I don't want to get any more hate speech strikes, and that's tough. It's tough to not get in trouble on YouTube. That last one burned me pretty bad.
That America is a fallen nation like every other nation. and that the church is God's people in the midst of the nation and the midst of all nations. The moment we forget that and think of America as somehow equaling the kingdom of God, or that God will uniquely back America because America is, quote, a Christian nation, that's where we lose our perspective. The moment we think, well, we have Christian values, and if we can get elected, then we can pass laws that reflect these Christian values, we miss the fact that when it comes to values for a secular nation or just an earthly nation, we have to argue based on natural law. We have to argue based on principles. We can't say, well, America has to do this because it's in the Bible. The founders didn't even do that. They recognized our essential liberty.
Founders. It always comes back to the founders.
Because we were created by God. But then when they argued law, it was based on God's ways are best. Let's show the world these ways are best. So as a follower of Jesus, I'm absolutely pro-life. When I talk to my non-believing neighbor about why we should be pro-life, I want to make an argument that that person can understand, as opposed to, well, the Bible says. What if it's a Muslim?
Right.
What if it's a traditional Jew or an atheist? Well, that doesn't have authority to them. So what I need to do is bring my argument in a way that shows God's ways are best. And when we align ourselves with him, we will be blessed as a nation. But once again, the simple thing is the merging of Christian identity with American identity when the two become one. When saying the pledge becomes just as sacred as worshiping the Lord. When, as General Mike Flynn recently said, with all respect to him, that preachers should preach from the Constitution as much as they preach from the Bible, that is really misguided rhetoric.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting because when you see some of these complaints in that third group, right, you know, that when you see secularists or people on the left sort of talk about this issue, you know, people are like incensed that there are Christians who want to see a world that reflects their values. Let's word it that way. And, you know, without getting into all the specifics here, it seems like every group wants that though, right? The atheists are complaining because they want politicians who reflect their values. Muslims, Jewish, I mean, everybody, at the end of the day, everybody is essentially, even if you don't have belief, advocating for policies and politicians who reflect their values.
And that's why democracy is stupid. You need to have a country where it's like, this is a European Christian country, and if you don't want to live here, then don't fucking live here. That's how a real country works. You don't go to Japan and look around, I find it very problematic how many Japanese people are around. Then don't live in Japan. You don't go to China and like, I find it very problematic how many Chinese people are in this movie. Then don't fucking watch Chinese movies. That's a real country. That's a real country that has real values. United States is, oh, there's an Asian woman and a black guy in a wheelchair and a Muslim and a Christian and a tranny. We're all happy together in our stupid, bullshit, made up sack of shit. It's not real. It's a lie.
Why is it, in light of the fact we know this is an issue, obviously it is an issue within the church, but why is it that it's only Christian nationalism? Why isn't there atheistic nationalism? Why is it only that the secular media talk about?
Right. So there are a couple of reasons. One, the secular media is secular. They don't have the spiritual perspective they do. They differ with our values. They often reject biblical values. So we are the evil enemy. And we're going to be caricatured. Some of it is irresponsible journalism. Some of it is simply not understanding. Some of it is that we are a threat. The fact is, all we're saying is we want to use the political system like everybody else. We want to be salt. We want to be light. We want to be involved. We want to cast our vote. We get a vote. And if we get our person elected and they share our values, then great. They can be pro-life, or they can advocate for family values that we stand for. The other side of it is that there is a lot of irresponsible rhetoric by Christian leaders and Christian political leaders that talk about taking over, that talk about dominion, that use those words over and over again. So it gives fuel to the fire of the critics. That's what I want to avoid. Hate me for Jesus. Hate me for my biblical values. Hate me for preaching what I believe to be true and right. But don't hate me because of my irresponsible rhetoric, because I'm unhinged, because I'm not careful in the words that I speak. That now brings reproach to the gospel. So all you need is a few prominent bad apples or a few prominent voices speaking irresponsibly, and it tarnishes all of us. We all come out looking bad. And once January 6th happened, now we are all white supremacist insurrectionists. If we are conservative, Republican, Trump voting, especially for white, we are all white supremacist insurrectionists. We have been branded. So we're going to be lied about. We're going to be maligned no matter what we do. So be it. But let's not give fuel to the fire by irresponsible rhetoric.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And it's interesting because for so many years, I've lived in New York now for 20, near New York City for 20 years. People would say, why are your faith values, your faith is separate. Why is it impacting your political values? And it is really interesting because when that has morphed and changed, and maybe some people have walked away a little bit, or maybe they have, found other ways to approach that. Suddenly it's sort of a shock to everybody. Like, well, oh, now they're not following their values after they did for so long. So with everything that you're writing about and talking about, what would you say, just as a final question here, this political seduction, this merging of the two, for everybody listening or watching, what's a good step that we can sort of take to maybe assess and see where we are to ensure we haven't fallen into this?
Yeah, so the last chapter of my book, The Political Seduction of the Church, retraces our steps. I lay out 17 points of emphasis from my two previous books, 2018, 2020, dealing with Donald Trump as a Trump voter. For example, we must put the cross before the flag. Just very, very simple things. We cannot get caught up with election fever. We need to put spiritual efforts before natural efforts. And then rate how we did. By my count, we got 15 out of 17 points wrong. But everyone could do that. The last chapter of the book, kind of take a test, see how they did with that. When we make something that is supposed to be a tool into an idol, when we look to a person in a way that we should only look to God, or as Douglas Wilson said, when we try to vote ourselves out of something we sinned ourselves into, it's a mistake. Simple solution: renew our first love for the Lord and our burden for the lost and our commitment to prayer and the Great Commission. Put that first, then our political involvement can find its proper place.
All right, I lied because I have one more question for you, because you always get me thinking. And this last one, this is truly the last question. As you sort of look at theology and this idea of people saying, well, look, we want policies that reflect, Christian values. We don't want to impose them on people, but we want, policies, that sort of fall in line with what God would say is the truth, that when we do that, we honor God and he in turn honors our nation. In light of what we talked about, how do you respond to somebody who might say that? Well, we kind of want those policies because we want to honor him. We want God to look favorably upon America. And again, those lines get tricky and blurry, but how would you respond to somebody saying that?
Number one, I agree with them. I absolutely agree with the perspective and the principle. And I believe Proverbs 14:34 that righteousness exalts a nation. That's any nation. Sin is a reproach to any people, so that it's a good principle. At the same time, when I come to the nation, when I talk to my neighbor, if I was a political leader campaigning, it can't be that I just quote the Bible and says, the Bible says, and we're a Christian nation and we're going to do this. There may have been a time during the colonies where we could have said that, but that is not ultimately the way our nation was founded. So what I want to do is say, God's ways are best. When we understand that he's the creator, just like you go to the manual, you're trying to find out what's the matter with your cell phone. Okay, is it Apple or is it Android? And what software is it? You find that out, you get the thing running properly. So God made us a certain way. He wired us a certain way. He created the world a certain way. When we do things his way, it brings life and thriving to all. So, I've argued for years against redefining marriage. Not because the Bible says so only, that's of course my foundation, but talking to the world to explain why it's best to have a child raised by a mother and father and why biology does matter. So because God's ways are best, I can bring natural arguments to the larger world rather than simply say the Bible says so. So I agree with the perspective. I do agree that if we honor God, he will bless us. That's for the entire world, not just for ancient Israel, but it's also a principle of reaping and sowing, that we sow God's way, we will reap God's blessing. Just like hard work will produce more than laziness, and generosity will beget generosity, where stinginess begets stinginess. Let's show that God's principles work best, and the best way to do it, let's live it out ourselves. And as we live it out ourselves, people will see, wow, you seem to be thriving and strong and doing well. What are the keys? Now we can share. And then from there, we can get to our faith.
Well, it would seem like the best way, if you were really concerned about getting politicians in who shared your Christian values, if you were really concerned about all these things, the best way to achieve that is to change people's hearts on the ground, right? That seems to be, people are then going to vote for those people. So that seems to be where the quote unquote, and I'm using this word lightly, battlefield is, not necessarily at the political front, which is where a lot of people are fighting it. Dr. Michael Brown, thank you so much. The book is The Political.
These problems will never go away in this country. By design, it's only going to get worse. So what are my thoughts on this? Well, first of all, something needs to be done. Like, just an example, the country needs to be like literally divided in half. And it's like, okay, if you don't want the Christian way of life, you go over there. I mean, basically, one side of the country is Republican and one side's Democrat, more or less. Like, this country is spiraling. We are spiraling. Ultimately, atheism, liberalism is pushed by the state. Atheists like to say that, like, children are born atheist. It's just nonsense. Before this modern Hollywood, public school, academia, media, MTV, pop culture machine was turning everyone into atheists, Western people were Christian. So this is an ideology pushed by the state, and ever since the satanic panic of the 80s, they have just really been maximizing and running with it, and it's time for Christians to start looking out for their own best interests. I would just say strategic flight. Strategic Christian flight, where it's like, you know, take places like the Bible Belt and make it even more of what it already is, to where you get these towns, you get these little cities where low key they've been filling up with Christians. All of the political offices are just filled with Christians. The schools are filled with Christians, and everything becomes Christian. And when somebody's like, oh, well, I noticed there's a lot of like knuckle dragging fundamentalist Christian policies here, so I want to work my way up into office, that person never fucking gets voted in. You got the real estate, housing, what is it called? Like the housing commission or something? The HOA, Homeowners Association, filled to the brim with Christians. You don't fucking sell homes to atheists. You don't sell homes to liberals. The town, the city is just low-key, filled to the brim with Christians, and you just quietly push people out, and you never give people an inch. Like, there just needs to be strategic redistribution of people to where you find countries that are already like-minded, or you find cities, towns, states that are already like-minded, and you fill it to the brim with Christians, and you turn it into a Christian fortress, bro, where it's like, hey, guess what? Texas is Christian, it's conservative, and we're never going to allow it to change. We're never going to allow these liberals to move here and buy homes. We're never going to allow them into office. It's never gonna fucking change. Just like how the Mormons populated Salt Lake City. Exactly. It's just time to, like this country is going to shit, man. And a lot of people are like, oh, look, another nothing burger. 2 more weeks. Like, yeah, nobody really wants a civil war. I'm not saying I want a civil war. I'm not saying I want civil conflict. That's when the feds come in. Well, guess what, bro? The feds ain't going to get shit. Like, everybody stands together and says, we don't want your liberal bullshit here. And the mayor is a Christian, and everybody on the board and the Senate and the House, everybody's a Christian, to the point where just nobody can do shit about it. That's what you need, bro. They're forced to become a part of the establishment to keep their territory. Well, I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that nobody's going to fight back, but Christians got to wake the fuck up, dude. The way that these like the head of the Baptist sweetie, the way these people are talking is like, this isn't what Christianity is about. They're not following Jesus, the Prince of Peace. They're not following the central message of the Gospels, which is love. Christians standing up for their way of life is going against the word of God. It's time for people to wake up, bro. It's not everything's going to be cozy. I always got these self-help normies telling you that growth doesn't exist in your comfort zone. Growth exists outside of your comfort zone. Well, it's going to be time for some Christians to get a little bit uncomfortable. If you want your kids to be raised the way that you know they should be raised, if you want to live in a place that's good, low crime, pro-family, family values, Christian values, you don't have to apologize for being a white Christian. You're going to have to fight for that, bro. And I don't mean like physical violence, even though, let's be honest, bro, someday a lot of people think it could come to that. People are going to have to stand up. These people are talking like if Christians do anything to try to protect their way of life, they're not following the Bible. It's unbelievable. The kingdom of God too often get mangled with the kingdom of this world. Thanks for sharing this powerful message. Cringe. Dr. Brown brings clarity to a complex issue of equating Christianity with MAGA. Or like MEGA. All right, we've been killing it with this topic, man. We haven't even gotten to the second topic yet. We'll just blow past the second topic really quick because, it's just Biden's approval rating. Like, who cares? All right, 3 threats Christian nationalism poses to the United States. Time magazine. I definitely like to show people like how evil Time magazine is. It's very important. Time magazine was a big part of how Vatican II was shoved down Catholics' throats all over the world. Yeah, it's always interesting to see Time magazine's perspective. So, in a recent national poll, researchers found that a majority of Republicans favor declaring the United States a Christian nation. In July, Marjorie Taylor Greene made waves on social media when she claimed Republicans should proudly embrace Christian nationalism. Politicians like Pennsylvania gubernatorial candidate Doug Mastriano have increasingly used Christian nationalist rhetoric on the campaign trail, likely due to seeing how well it worked for Trump. It is clear more people are paying attention to and using the term. There were more tweets including Christian nationalism in July of 2022 than in all of 2021. There's still a lot of Christians in this country, and they're tired of getting bullied. And I think they would be wise to not call it Christian nationalism. That's what the left is going to want to label it, but just don't call it Christian nationalism. Just call it Christians standing up for a Christian way of life. Christians who are tired of apologizing for following their way of life. Christians who are tired of these fake values of, everybody's, Muslims and Christians and atheists, we all have to be best friends and hold hands and go to the same schools. What that always defaults to is Christians getting bullied. That's what that always defaults to. But what is Christian nationalism, and is it really worth the fuss? Christian nationalism refers to an ideology that asserts all civic life in the U.S. should be organized according to a particularly conservative and ethnocentric expression of Christianity. Well, I'll tell you what, I don't really care if the entire country is like that, but I think some places should be like that, and that's where I want to live, and that's where I want my family to be. And I think Christians who are actually about their faith and they're not brainwashed to think that, liberal secular values are an important part of Christianity, that's what they should all want. They should want to shamelessly live their way of life. Christian nationalism is more than theological or religious beliefs. It includes several cultural assumptions, including strict moral traditionalism focused on sustaining social hierarchies, comfort with authoritarian control exercised by the right people that includes the threat and use of violence, a desire for strict ethno-racial boundaries around who is a true American, where non-white and non-natural born citizens are viewed as unworthy of full participation in American civic life. I'm tired of people talking, the Christians are so violent. They want to be violent. They want to be violent. We've seen Black Lives Matter. We've seen Antifa. We've seen the violence that the left is capable of. We've seen the violence that the radical secular left is capable of. We've seen what you guys are about. You guys are about flooding the streets, trying to intimidate people, breaking windows, attacking buildings, looting fucking businesses. Yeah, well, maybe it's time for you guys to get a taste of your own medicine. Oh, they're going to be violent. They're going to be violent. You mean like when Antifa was throwing their piss and shit at everybody who was trying to watch Trump's inauguration? Man, you guys got no fucking morals at all. And it's not surprising because none of you are Christians. If you're not a Christian, you don't have any fucking morals. Period. I don't give a shit about your ass backwards fucking weird tribal shithole non-morals. If you're not a Christian, you don't have morals. Christian nationalism centers and privileges the white Christian experience. It believes the founders of the U.S. were conservative. And I'll say right now, I'm not a white nationalism, bro. I'm about Christians, okay? These Christian places that I'm talking about, there can be black people there. They're going to celebrate, their Christian holidays. They're going to go to church, and their kids are going to get married and have families. And, it's about being Christian. It's not about being white. I just want to make that clear. But the idea that things are evil if it's 80% white. This idea that things aren't diverse enough if the population is anything over 70 or 80% white. I think it should be okay for white people to exist in density. It should be fine for a state to be 80% white. There's nothing wrong with that. But there can be some black people there. Sure. You just got to be Christian. It believes the founders of the U.S. were conservative, white Christian men intent on founding a country where they and others like them could lead and flourish. Yeah, founding fathers again. Yeah, because the left loves the founding fathers, right? Now, many Americans believe Christianity played an important role in the founding period or that the founding fathers were religious in one way or another. No reputable historian disputes these claims. However, Christian nationalism moves well beyond such observations. It views this particular expression of Christianity as the undisputed framework of the U.S. and wants all levels of the government to preserve that framework. This means that Christian nationalism does not want a government for the people by the people. It wants a government for a particular people by a particular people, namely politically and religiously conservative white American Christians. Well, guess what? That's how you have a country that doesn't die. That's how you have a real country where people actually love the country and get along. That's what a real country is. This country is 50% of the population, hates the other half of the population, and they are ruled over by a deep state globalist establishment that manipulates these people and pits them against each other. Survey after survey shows between 15 and 20% of Americans strongly embrace the tenets of Christian nationalism. We got to up those rookie numbers. While another 1/3 support it, albeit less fervently. Okay. So you add 1/3 to the 20%. That's 50 fucking percent, baby. Let's go. Get in the chopper. Let's do it. Let's just fucking do it already. 50%. I'm good with those odds. Let's roll it. Perhaps now we can sense the danger Christian nationalism poses to the U.S. if it sees our country as primarily for the benefit of a small subset of the overall population. A burgeoning collection of recent social science research provides evidence of the threats Christian nationalism poses, and here I'll identify 3. Hey, you know what? Maybe Time Magazine poses a threat. Maybe Christians aren't the problem. Maybe Time Magazine's the problem. How about that? Christian nationalism is anti-democratic. Oh no! What if we lived in a country where half the population didn't hate the other half of the country? Wow. The horror. Christian nationalism is about power. Power in the right hands to ensure the U.S. fulfills its covenant with God. However, democracy demands we share power. This places Christian nationalism at odds with democracy. Oh, well, I guess I don't give a fucking shit about democracy then. Americans who embrace Christian nationalism want to ensure the country does not turn its back on God. So when the political winds turn against stances they see as endorsed by God, they must do all they can to stand for what they see as the ultimate good. And that's exactly what liberals do with the shit that you believe. Anytime anything goes against your pink pussy hat wearing LGBT global homo nonsense, you do the same exact fucking thing. We don't want what you want. You don't want what we want. So I guess it's a bunch of barrel-chested, God-fearing Christian men versus a bunch of fucking trannies in wheelchairs. Let's just start it already. Let's just start it already. I think the barrel-chested Christian men are going to beat the trannies in wheelchairs. So let's fucking do it already. Whoever wins takes all. A bunch of gay people and women versus God-fearing Christian men, and it sounds like God-fearing Christian men are half of the country, so let's fucking do it already. I'm a little bit pumped up today. I haven't smoked any weed yet today. This is why, in one recent study, we find that Americans who embrace Christian nationalism are more likely to deny voter suppression is a problem, believe it is too easy to vote in the U.S., believe voter fraud is rampant, support having to pass a civics test in order to vote, support laws that would disenfranchise anyone who committed certain crimes. Oh, we got to make sure the criminals can vote. And why is it that Democrats are so... Why is it that it's so important for Democrats to let criminals vote? Because they know the fucking criminals are going to vote Democrat. They have to pass a civics test. It seems like the left, it's really important for the left that just any fucking knuckle dragger can vote because they know they're going to vote Democrat. They want to disenfranchise criminals. Yeah, I do. I do want to disenfranchise criminals. Sounds like the left wants to franchise criminals. You see the fucking problem here, dude? Ugh! And the national poll showing a majority of Republicans favored declaring the United States as a Christian nation referenced above, it found Republicans support this stance despite recognizing such a move would be unconstitutional. Yeah, the left is all about the Constitution, right? The anti-democratic propensities of Christian nationalism preserve the unequal access to the political process enjoyed by white, natural-born conservative Christian citizens. Moves to expand who can pull the levers of power imperils this access. Therefore, Christian nationalism will discard democracy if necessary. Sounds good. Christian nationalism perpetuates racism. Of course it does. Various recent books demonstrate various recent books. What recent books? You're not even going to say what fucking books? Oh, it's just Time Magazine, just various recent books. Like what, dude? Like Kim Possible, the infographic? Like, what are you talking about? Various recent books demonstrate how white Christianity in the U.S. was a key part of the creation and preservation of racial hierarchies. Wow, so Time Magazine is anti-Christian. Imagine my fucking shock. White Christian nationalism. Man, hearing Time Magazine say white Christian this, white Christian that, man, I want Time Magazine burnt to the fucking ground. I would love that. I'm just saying, I would love that. If it was in the news, latest just in, the Time Magazine headquarters burnt to the ground and everybody in there fucking died. Like, I wouldn't give a shit. Recent research shows Christian nationalism obscures the origins of racial inequality, but you know what, dude? I hope that Time Magazine burns to the fucking ground. I'm done reading this shit. Are we okay? How we doing, YouTube? I'm clearly ready to just, like, be ballsy on this channel because we're about to get back to the main. I'm just saying what I want to say today, and it feels good. Okay. We've done enough on that topic. New polling. President Biden's approval rating at its highest point of 2022. So this is 3 days ago. MSNBC, baby.
Polling shows most Americans believe Donald Trump kept highly sensitive information at Mar-a-Lago. In the latest survey from Marquette University Law School, 68% of registered voters believe the former president had top secret or classified material at his Palm Beach home. 32% say he did not, even though we've seen the documents. The same poll also shows about 2/3 of voters have a negative opinion of Donald Trump. Just over 1/3 say they view the former president favorably.
God.
34% is Donald Trump's current favorability rating in the country. The approval for the current president, Joe Biden, however, sits higher. 46% of registered voters give the president positive marks. That is up 9% just from July. When asked about a potential rematch between Trump and Biden in the next presidential election, Biden is ahead of Trump by 6 points. Biden also edges out Florida Governor Ron DeSantis by 5 points in a hypothetical matchup. And another poll out just now puts President Biden's approval rating at its highest point of the year. In the latest Emerson College survey, 46% of likely voters give the president a positive grade. That's up 5 points from July and up 7% since May. Let's bring in Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist at the Washington Post, Eugene Robinson, and White House editor for Politico, Sam Stein. Good to see you both. Eugene, this follows a trend for President Biden that we've seen in other polling in the last couple of weeks, which is that from his low point a couple of months ago, he is now seeing progress, perhaps rewards for some of the legislation that's been passed and some of the things he's been doing just lately.
Yeah, I think he is seeing some rewards, and so his approval ratings now seem to have gotten back up into the non-catastrophic level at least, and are getting pretty good actually for a first-term president at this point in his presidency. I mean, there's usually a dip. He had a very low dip, but it's coming back up, and I think it reflects the legislative successes that he's had, and it also reflects what the other party, the Republican Party, has been doing, and hanging over all this, of course, was the Dobbs decision that I think has both energized Democratic voters, enraged and energized Democratic voters, and just sort of put a spotlight back.
Man, this whole Christian nationalism is so white. It's white. Black people, I want you guys to start seeing through that, man. I've gone on this rant so many times. I want strong Christian black families. I'm imagining a black Thanksgiving right now, okay? You guys are watching The Cosby Show or like Living Color or whatever the fuck it is that black people watch on the holidays, okay? Little Tiniqua's like playing with race cars or some shit in the living room, and you guys are going to have a big Thanksgiving dinner. Everybody's black, and everybody says prayers, and everybody's kids are going to college and getting married, and y'all go to church. I want that for every race. Just Christianity, Christian morals, this idea that it's racist. I mean, a lot of people like to point out how Christianity is like not originally super white. Jesus was Jewish, okay? A lot of people consider Yahweh like the Jewish God. The Old Testament is a Jewish book. It's about Christ is king, okay? God is above everything, even my race. I'm tired of this, like, oh, it's white supremacist, it's white supremacist. Man, I want to be fighting alongside brothers, dude. I'm gonna be like Cloud with my big ass sword, and then there's what's that? Barrett, the black dude with the gun. Man, I want to fight alongside with black people and Latinos, and we're all united by faith in Christ, man. Don't buy this race-baiting horse shit.
On politics in a way that's a bit more favorable for the president and the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and Sam, to Gene's point, if you look inside this poll, only 30% of the people surveyed in that Marquette poll believe Roe should have been overturned. 90% of all Americans believe there should be exceptions in abortion, even if they support it for rape and incest. And of course, we've seen some of these extreme positions among people running for high offices across the country among the Republican Party. Perhaps some of that extremism explains Joe Biden's lift in the polls as well.
Yeah, I think a few things are happening here. Obviously, the Dobbs decision has energized Democrats. You see that in registration numbers across various states where Democrats are signing up to vote, women in particular. You see that in enthusiasm to go to the polls, which you see Democrats doing better in those numbers as well. And to Eugene's point, I think you see it in Biden's approval rating. Although my contention is that Biden's approval rating is as much about falling gas prices, which is this tangible thing that you see every day driving.
Any man who isn't married and isn't having sex is abiding by the laws of God.
To and from work, literally in these neon signs, as it is about Dobbs and anything else. I think Biden benefits from people not feeling pinched at the pump. And then I think you can't separate what's happening with Donald Trump from this current climate. I think having Donald Trump in the news all the time with his legal troubles, his political issues, I think does rebound in Biden's favor. It reminds people why they elected Biden in the first place, which is they just don't want to deal with the drama that seems to follow Donald Trump wherever he goes. So I think those three issues, Trump, gas, and abortion rights, are all working in Biden's favor. The question is, I guess, does it stay that way for however many days? What is it, 50 or so until we vote in November?
Yeah, Gene, if you look at Donald Trump's approval rating in that first poll, that Marquette poll, he's at 34%. If you look among independents, he's only at 30%. So his support is coming mostly, obviously, from Republicans, where he's at, 3/4 of them still support him. But then with this Mar-a-Lago documents case and the investigation, 2/3 of Americans believe that, yes, the former president did take those documents from the White House and bring them to Mar-a-Lago. This all has to sort of be weighing over Donald Trump's decision, does it not, about what?
Man, people who have some sort of a problem with like anything being Jewish, you just really need to get over that, bro. I'm reading through Kings right now. The Bible is so high test. The Old Testament is so high test. When anybody in Kings didn't do what God said, it was like, and the Lord told him to strike him down, and he didn't strike him down. So he said, you have not obeyed my commands. When you leave here, you're going to get eaten by a lion. And guess what? When he left, he got eaten by a fucking lion. That's what happens. That's what used to happen. And like the difference between the New Testament and the Old Testament is you need to be grateful that you don't get eaten by a lion when you don't do what God says, because that's how it used to be, and it's different now, and you need to be humbled and grateful.
Whether to run in 2024?
Well, I think what really weighs on Donald Trump's decision is what he thinks will keep him out of worse legal jeopardy. I've always thought that Trump will announce and try to run or plan to run or pretend to run, if only as a way to try to insulate himself from all the legal trouble that is closing in on him. And he'll claim it's all political. He's a candidate. He's running for president again, and he's being persecuted by the Democrats. That'll, of course, energize his base. It's not clear that it'll do anything for the voters he would actually need to become president again. But I've always thought that that's his sort of plan, and I think that's what he's going to do. So, remember, Donald Trump doesn't necessarily react to rational signals like this. You look at polling like this, and you would think, gee, I've got no shot. This is, 30% among independents. That's not going to get you elected. But he's got other considerations. His fortune is being threatened in New York by Tish James. His liberty is potentially threatened in Georgia by Fani Willis, the prosecutor down there. The committee is still meeting. The Justice Department is investigating. He's got all these legal problems.
Chatty! Dude, doesn't this guy kind of look like a Chad? Damn, look at that jaw, dude. Absolutely chatty. That's DeSantis. Oh, you guys. Chatty. I'm voting Republican. All right? That's just the way it is. We always make a point. The two-party system is cucked. The two-party system is cucked. Whatever, man. Like, I just kind of like seeing liberals seethe at the end of the day. I mean, there's all the deeper conversations. Like, actually, at this point, the left is like pseudo proto-commies, and then the right is like the actual classical liberals. Whatever, dude. I'm voting for Trump. Whatever, dude. There's probably going to be a civil war. I don't care. I'm full of tests right now. Get out of my way, traitors.
problems that are closing in on him, and you know, 1 or 2 or 3, he's got 4 or 5. You know, that's a lot. So he's definitely on the defensive now, and as he always does, just making stuff up. Like you know, I can declassify documents just by thinking about it, and
yes.
Oh yeah, and the FBI planted documents in my place. But judges, the justice system is now saying, okay, put up or shut up, and he's going to have to shut up.
23 smears. I uploaded a drum transcription today on my drumming channel, on my drumming Instagram. You guys, I don't want to overthink it. I just really want to just start like doing everything. I want to, yeah, sure, I'll put out some rap music. I'm putting out drum transcriptions. We're doing the podcast. I'd love to put some more videos on my channels. I don't want to overthink it. I don't want to talk about it too much. My poison has been like when the years go by and I'm not doing stuff, and like the more time you don't do it, the more you're just like, damn, dude, I'm not doing that. What does it mean? I've wasted so much time. I should have done it a long time ago. Just clear my mind. Just do everything, bro. Smeartober is going to be like opening the gates of smear drum covers, rap albums, positivity mixtapes, self-help videos, podcasts, working out. Like, Smear Gang's taking over, bro. And we do everything to glorify our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Let's go. She was 12. I was 30. Biden. Enough said. Make the lie big. Make it simple. Keep saying it, and eventually they'll believe it. Joseph Goebbels. Literally fascist type. All right. Let's just go. We're killing it today. White House addresses President Biden's low approval ratings. Let's go. ABC News. I got to pee after this.
The midterms are just a little more than 2 months away, and Democrats and President Biden are feeling the pressure for sure, as a new ABC News Washington Post poll is showing that just 35% of Democrats would vote to keep President Biden on the ballot. ABC News political reporter Brittany Shepard joining us live now to break this all down for us. So, Brittany, let's start with Cecilia Vega, our chief White House correspondent. She really tried to press the White House press secretary today on that poll during today's briefing. Let's take a listen.
The poll actually shows that the president is deeply underwater when it comes to the economy. Is there anything the White House plans to do differently?
Okay, so the last video was from like 3 days ago, and it was talking about how Joe Biden's approval numbers were up. And now this is from today, and it's saying White House addresses President Biden's low approval ratings. Yikes. Seems kind of all over the place.
We need to do the midterms are in 44 days.
I understand what you're saying about the president's numbers, but what we are going to focus on is how we are going to continue to deliver for the American people, especially at the most important things that matter to them. Lowering costs, making inflation a priority when it comes to his economic agenda, making sure we don't leave anybody behind, build an economy from the bottom up, middle out, and that's going to be the president's focus.
In other words, Cecilia, I'm not going to answer your questions. So, Brittany, why don't you go ahead and give us a reality check here since Jean-Pierre didn't?
Well, President Biden is underwater across several critical sectors, and inflation and the economy chief among them. I was just in Pittsburgh on Friday talking to voters and at a Republican event, and folks there are incised. There isn't that much that Biden can do to reach those folks on the right. But with, I think it's 44 days left of the midterms, voters are eager to hear from Biden on what they're going to do to make sure that their paycheck goes a little bit longer come November, especially in the critical holiday months with Thanksgiving and Christmas just around the bend. The White House.
All my drumming content is under the name 7-Stroke Guru. It's probably going to change at some point, but yeah, 7-Stroke Guru on Instagram, 7-Stroke Guru on YouTube. My TikTok, Reform Stoic Official on TikTok. I'm also going to upload my drum stuff there. So, yeah, I got some drumming content coming soon. And I uploaded a little something today. I posted it in my community tab on my main channel.
The White House is telling us that they are going to be wrapping around the last 19 months of his presidency, sending Biden out to the rope line to remind voters of all the, frankly, large legislative wins that they've notched in the last, I would say, 8 weeks. Inflation Reduction Act, chief among them. to try to convince the American people that they've done enough and they're willing to go the extra mile. But let me tell you, Terry Keir, I think it'll be a very, very, very difficult job for them.
It sounds like in strategy and tactics and the horse race, the side post is supposed to tell us about us, right, about the country, substantively. And there was a sense that Democrats had that that voters were coming to them on issues like abortion and the danger to democracy. This poll and others suggest that either that's stalled out or that people have other concerns that are more important. What do you think?
Well, what I'm hearing from voters is they're trying to juggle lots of different priorities. One maybe large priority being what to do with democracy, but that's spongier. It's harder to put your fingers around. When they're seeing crunches to their paycheck, then that is something that's hitting them immediately from dinner table to dinner table. And they're stressed. They're worried. And Democrats are hoping that fears around the repeal of Roe versus Wade will help independents and Democrats line behind them. But frankly, I think it's going to be a pretty difficult run for Democrats. Something really interesting from that poll, too, shows that a majority of Democrats, I think it was 56%, want somebody else who isn't Joe Biden. I've heard that. I'm sure you both have heard that. You're at happy hours, even walking up and down Starbucks here in D.C. People want something else. And if you look at voters under 40, that number is around 75%. Three-quarters Democrat looking around their shoulder, around the bend for anyone. But we both know how difficult it is to primary a sitting president, especially when you have the DNC and all their funds and surrogates against you. When I talk to Democrats who say, well, if you don't want Biden, who do you want? They're hard-pressed to come up for solutions. A name I hear occasionally is Vice President Kamala Harris, but there are questions with Democratic brass here about her electability, with her likability, with her ability to be able to go toe-to-toe to someone like Donald Trump or maybe Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Remember, she was a pretty junior member of the Senate and an effective politician when it came to hearings, but as Vice President, she's not very liked as well as Joe Biden, and I think that Democrats are feeling like devil they know, devil they don't know aren't good enough.
So, Brittany, you said that folks have been saying to you, other than Joe Biden, who else is out there other than Joe Biden? I mean, what are you hearing, I guess?
Well, Kira, hearing a little bit about Harris, I think I hear a little bit rumblings about Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, you know, folks who maybe ran last cycle. But folks, Democrats, especially young Democrats, are really pissed off, and frankly, they feel like they don't have a lot of options. They feel like they tried for Bernie twice. That didn't work. And they're looking for perhaps a bolt out of the blue, someone like Obama who kind of came in late term, post midterms to come shake things up. But when I talk to Democrats, they say if it's Joe Biden and not anybody else, they might not just vote. And I feel like that's the real swing voter here, not somebody who goes from party to party, but somebody who's incised to vote to somebody who doesn't vote. And I asked folks around the DNC, folks who used to work at the White House and are now in private business, who are other Democrats who you think could make it? Some say Illinois Governor J.D. Pritzker. He's very rich. He's very in the know. I think governor's very hot right now. Gavin Newsom has been in the mix a little bit, but no one with enough authority for Democrats to say, okay, Joe Biden, it's time to retire. Go back to Wilmington. We have someone else up next.
Well, it's still a couple of years away, so there's plenty of time for that story to develop. But I do want to ask about enthusiasm, right? Midterms generally don't get anywhere near the turnout that you see in general elections. But in these special elections, for Congress and in that Kansas referendum, you did see striking levels of turnout. How does the enthusiasm meter run right now for Democrats and Republicans, do you think?
Well, Terry, clearly abortion is an animating issue for Democrats. I believe in that same ABC News Washington Post poll. Democrats are trusted in an outsized number to Republicans on handling abortion. And we talk to voters. Democrats are worried about their rights being taken away. And that enthusiasm gap, Democrats believe will shut, or at least get super, super close come November, especially, and you might be surprised, in ruby red states like Arizona, there was a new abortion law that was just passed yesterday with language from the late 1800s, early 1900s, criminalizing essentially all abortion and throwing folks in jail who are going to be offering those abortions. The Democrats are saying that they're going to be able to get enough people who are scared and angry, who want to fight for their rights post-Dobbs, to really close that gap. In that same poll, we're seeing that women voters under 40 are a lot more likely to vote in this midterms in a way they weren't right after that Dobbs decision came down. That's not nothing. These are women who live in suburbs that were able to take the election away from Donald Trump the second time around. It's a critical voting bloc, I think. People think of the red wave. I think maybe posit this is a bit of a pink wave that women might be pushing against any kind of gains that Republicans hope to get in just 44 days, Terry.
All right, Brittany Shepard. As you point out, we've got some time.
We do.
We've got the
Before
midterms.
2024, but the
Right.
midterms
We have 44
right
days
Yep.
and then the next 2 years. So a lot to come. All right, Brittany, thanks so much.
Dark Brandon versus Orange Cheeto Man. I think the shit's going to hit the fan someday, you guys. Like I've said over and over, you just can't stop this force. Nobody's going to calm down. Liberals aren't going to become Christians. Christians aren't going to become atheists. People are set in their ways, and it basically is like 50-50. It's basically half the country versus the other half of the country. He could step down tomorrow, and I wouldn't even celebrate. I would, however, smile more at people who voted for him, though. Yeah, like, we're going to see some sort of spurgouts, regardless who wins the election, man. Everybody's pissed off. Tensions are high. Let's ease those tensions with some funny walrus, funny cat videos. Here we go. I got to go pee-pee.
Hey, bear! No! Hey, bear! Get in the house! Whoa!
There was a lot of noise going on. Minnie!
Pizza. Come for a walk. You come for a walk? Do you want to come for a walk? I can see you.
Hello. Hello, Jackie. Ooh.
Okay. Okay, guys, the end is in sight for this podcast. We had a very intense beginning segment. We'll just skim through this a little bit. Biden struggles, as does his party, as most Democrats look elsewhere for 2024 poll. Yeah, I think it's time for Trump to win again, guys. I mean, look, the glows are they're all up in democracy. It doesn't really matter who wins. Everybody's just got to prepare, guys. Just prepare, man. Just live your best life. Be your best self. Start being positive. Eat healthy. Work out. Study. Whatever the thing is that you do more of it. Monetize it. Work on your business. Do your work. Get your money. Just live, guys. I feel good energy coming for us in Smeartober. Accept it. You've earned it. With his party struggling in the midterms, his economic stewardship under fire, and his overall job approval under 40%, a clear majority of Democrats in the latest ABC News Washington Post poll say the party should replace Joe Biden as its nominee for president in 2024. A clear majority of the Democrats say they should replace Joe Biden. All right, so it's a majority. In the November midterm election ahead, registered voters divide 47 to 46% between the Republican and Democrat candidate in their House district. Historically, not enough to prevent typical first midterm losses. And one likely voter model has a 51 to 46% Republican-Democrat split. Looking 2 years off, just 35% of Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents favor Biden for the 2024 nomination. 35%. 56% want the party to pick someone else. Republicans and GOP-leaning independents, for their part, split 47 to 46 on whether Donald Trump should be their 2024 nominee. It's got to be Trump, dude. 20-point drop for Trump compared with his 2020 nomination. The unpopularity of both figures may encourage third-party hopefuls, though they rarely do well. It's got to be Trump, baby. I'm just curious. I'm just curious to see what Trump round 2 looks like. Miga! All right. That's enough of that. I'm eager, dude. I'm pumped up, man. I think I'm going to hit a second workout. I'm going to listen to some music and like pace around, and I'm fired up, guys. I'm living my life. Let's all freaking live our lives. John Piper, Church and Politics. 6 minutes to close us out. Let's flippin' skitty.
The observation is that there's a YouTube thing of me, I assume this is what you're referring to, speaking right to Barack Obama. I mean, I'm looking.
Bum 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 ba da 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 ba da ba da ba da ba 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 ba. He looks like freaking Larry David, dude. September was rocky, but I'm determined to get the most out of Smeartober. Good vibes are there for you guys. Take it. I'm not a psychic, but I just feel the good vibes. We've all earned it, man. We've been through a lot in this life, baby. Let's step into our real selves for real.
Right into the camera. I did it intentionally, and I'm talking to him. Mr. President, this is right after he was elected. And I'm calling him to repent for his view about abortion. And I'm saying, I wish that you got right. And I said some positive things. And you can go to YouTube and look it up tonight. You can watch it. Just type in Piper, abortion, Obama, or something like that, and you'll find it. The question was, what do I think the role is of the Christian or the church in addressing politics? That's huge. So let me just make a few random comments. I do think the role of the Christian and the role of the church are not the same. The role of the church as an institution, I think, has to be more careful than the role of any of you individuals. You're going to vote, you're going to think, you're going to talk, you express your opinions at work, you're going to be, tussling and interacting. The church has to be a little more careful. It's an institution. It speaks for a lot of people. You can't just go blathering and say the church this and the church that. Well, how do you know? So keep separate in your mind the roles of institution in addressing and the roles of people in addressing. I think the Bible's pretty clear that the people should be salt and light scattered in all the institutions and all the layers of society to do as much influence and good as we can. So you just scattering that church out there, be involved in as many things as you can be, and speak for Jesus everywhere and stand for righteousness and justice and love everywhere. Now, as a pastor in the pulpit, I don't want to play any partisan politics, even on issues I'm totally committed to. Now, what I mean is, I'm going to preach on abortion, I'm going to preach on racial justice. We have, it's so interesting providentially in our country that Sanctity of Life Sunday and Martin Luther King weekend always come back to back. We make hay out of that at our church. We make the Republicans mad and the Democrats mad by putting those back to back. Because Democrats don't give a hoot about pro-life and Republicans don't give a hoot about racial justice. And so we put them back to back. And I preach on the racial things, Martin Luther King weekend, and pro-life things the next weekend. And I say to the church, we're not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We're Christians. We have King
really real
Jesus, not Obama, not Bush. King Jesus is our champion.
Oh, wow. When he said that, I just looked at the date and realized this is from 2010. Let's go. Throwback hype.
So I really want my pulpit to feel prophetic. I want it to get in the face of Republicans. I want to get in the face of Democrats. I don't care who's in the White House. I want to speak for Jesus. And I think that will be undermined even if I take right political partisan stands in my pulpit. In other words, if I start saying, vote this afternoon for this particular law in Minneapolis, vote for this particular candidate, because the world is going to hear me, and no matter how I qualify it, they're going to say, he's right-wing, because I'm probably going to vote that way. He's right-wing, or he's left-wing, doesn't matter. And therefore, my prophetic voice into the right and the left is going to be blunted. So one of the criteria I use, and I'm speaking to pastors, which is why I emphasize this, one of the criteria I use is what strategies of involvement will preserve my freedom to be in people's face. All of them. I have really wondered, what would I do? I've never gotten a call like this. I don't expect to. What would I do if I got a phone call from a president who said, I'd just like a personal spiritual counselor. Would you be willing to meet with me every month or so quiet? Nobody knows, just you and me. I've wondered, what would I do? I don't think I would do it, but I don't know for sure. I mean, there are biblical examples of prophets who were counselors to kings. But I'm almost sure what would happen if I did that, or if Bill Hybels did it, or Rick Warren did it, or who else has done it? Billy Graham. We're going to get co-opted. We're going to get used. I'm going to get used by the Republicans or by the Democrats. It's going to come out. And then people say, Piper's schmoozing with the president. And as soon as you're schmoozing with a politician, you're not a prophet anymore. You might not be schmoozing, but the people are going to say you're schmoozing. I mean, why else would you go to Washington every week? That's pretty cool, man. Ego trip and all that. So, frankly, I'd say, Mr. Obama, this is quite an honor. And I think I have lots to say to you. But, sir, if I were to hang out with you, I think it would undermine my credibility with my prophetic office to be able to criticize you as I ought, or to criticize your critics as I ought. So, sir, as much as I'm honored by your call, I don't think I should do this. Now, that's...
All Christians should be recruiters. Let's go for Jesus.
Utterly egocentric of me to think I would get a call like that. So...
All right, my friends. Well, let me try to close with something on this topic. What should Christians do in terms of politics? It is important to keep in mind things about violence. It is important to keep in mind that we are not of the world. But the people that we listen to at the beginning of this podcast, they're taking it way too far, okay? When you watch the world around you becoming more and more secular, you watch your way of life being under attack, you are allowed to stand up for your beliefs, but you should do it peacefully, God willing, as long as we're not in a war. You do things peacefully, you speak your mind, you don't apologize for defending your beliefs. It's just time for us to grow up, you guys. I think a big part of childhood for me was I'm not about anything, so I can go to the parties, I can fit in with everybody. I'm taking the easy route, and the easy route is like, wow, look how many friends I have because I'm not about anything. And then you start growing up, and it's like, you know what? Growing up means that I'm sorry. It looks like you and me aren't going to be cool because you're not okay with me having these values, and these values are much more important than me being cool with you and me being cool. It's part of growing up, guys. Oh, no, I'm not Mr. Cool at the party. I'm not the prom king anymore. That's what growing up's about. Pick up your cross, guys. Follow Christ. I'm feeling pumped up, man. I'm gonna listen to some music and like pace around and eat some food and think. I think we might be back for a smear tonight. We might be back for a chill stream, but I'm gonna do some other stuff for a couple of hours. I appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate you guys, man. I couldn't do it without y'all. We're building something here. It's not just about me, guys. This is us. We're all in this together. Get freaking smeared, you freaking traitors. We're going to take it all back for Jesus. All right, guys. God bless you. And I will probably see you in a couple of hours for Chill Stream. Thank you, my friends. The best we can hope for is that Putin fires the ICBMs. Let's get it. Hopefully not. All right, guys. Until then.